Hey friend, please stop whatever you are doing and listen to me for just a few minutes. What I am about to share with you is not something I want you to scroll past. We received a testimony from a man who experienced death for 18 minutes and came back with a message everyone needs to hear. Whether you believe this or not, I ask you to listen with an open heart. I have sat with this testimony, and today am going to share it. I pray you don't miss the most urgent part of his experience. Please stay until the very end, because there is one part of his testimony that you absolutely need to hear. Before we begin, tell us where you are watching from. Our prayer team would love to pray for you. God bless you now. Listen carefully as I share his experience with you. My name is David Warren. I'm 50 years old, and for a long time I didn't want to tell this story, not because I doubted it happened. I know exactly what happened to me. I didn't want to tell it because I know how it sounds. I spent 25 years in logistics consulting, supply chains, shipping routes, fuel contracts, risk assessments for companies that move things across oceans. I built a career on being the guy who doesn't get carried away, the guy who reads the data, not the headlines. So when people who've known me for 20 years hear that I'm about to tell them I met Jesus and he showed me the future, I understand the look on their face. I used to make that same look at other people. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a prophet. I never claimed to hear from God in any special way. I went to church. I said grace. I believed in him the way a lot of people believe in him, as something true, somewhere far off, that I'd deal with more seriously later. I trusted my own judgment. I trusted the numbers. I trusted the plan. That's who I was. And then my heart stopped for 18 minutes, and I wasn't who I was anymore. I want to tell you what happened. All of it. Not to scare you. Not to convince you I have some kind of secret knowledge nobody else has. I want to tell you because of one thing that was said to me, in a place I still don't have the right words for, that I have not been able to put down since. And I think you need to hear it too. Let me start by telling it, how it all started. I was in a coastal city on a work trip. I won't tell you which one. It doesn't matter. And honestly, after everything, I've stopped thinking it needs to. Shipping lanes had been disrupted for weeks. Fuel supplies were tightening. Tensions overseas had been climbing for months. The kind of slow climb where everyone in my industry starts making calls to each other just to compare notes, because none of us like what we're seeing on the screens. My firm sent me out to do an emergency assessment of an underground freight and transit hub. One of the pressure points where, if things got worse, a lot of people's lives were going to get harder fast. I'd been in that tunnel 100 times in my career, in cities like it. Concrete, steel, the low hum of machinery, the smell of diesel and rust. Nothing special about it, just another Tuesday. I was standing near a maintenance junction, going over readings with a site engineer, when the ground moved. I didn't understand what was happening at first. There was a sound before there was anything else. A deep sound, not loud exactly, more like the whole tunnel exhaled. Later I learned an electrical fault had ignited gas that had been building up behind damaged infrastructure. Gas nobody knew was there. A secondary explosion. That's the term they used afterward, like it was supposed to make it smaller somehow. Secondary. The blast came from behind a wall to my left. I remember the light before I remember the noise. A flash so bright it turned the tunnel white for a second. And then the sound hit, and then the world just came apart. I was standing near a reinforced service corridor, and that's the only reason I'm telling you this story at all. The corridor took the worst of it. I was thrown hard into the wall behind me, and something, I still don't know what, came down across my chest. I remember the weight of it. I remember not being able to get a full breath. I remember dust so thick I couldn't see my own hands. And then I don't remember much else. Not clearly. I know I was in there for a while before anyone reached me, because they told me afterward. I know there was shouting, far away and then closer. I know there were lights, hard, white emergency lights, swinging through the dark, throwing long shadows against smoke. I remember someone's hand on my shoulder and a voice saying my name, asking me to stay with them. And I remember trying to answer and not being able to. I don't remember the moment my heart stopped. I'm told it happened in the ambulance on the way out, and that it happened again once inside. I'm told a paramedic knelt over me in that tunnel, with dust in his hair and blood that wasn't his own on his hands, and did compressions on my chest for what felt, to him, like it would never end. I'm told they used a defibrillator twice before they got me stable enough to move. I'm told there was a moment in the ambulance where someone said, out loud, "We're losing it," and somebody else said, "Not yet," and kept working. 18 minutes. That's how long my heart was still. 18 minutes of CPR, medication, a breathing tube forced into place by hands that didn't stop shaking until it was over, a team of people who had never met me before that night refusing to let me go. I don't remember any of that from the inside. What I remember is something else entirely, and I need you to walk through it with me slowly, because I've had a long time to think about how to explain it, and I still don't think I get it fully right. The pain stopped first. That's the strangest part to describe. One moment there was pressure and pain crushing my chest, so much I couldn't think past it, and then there wasn't. Not because it got better, because I stopped being able to feel my body at all. I heard the voices from the tunnel, but they were far away, like I was hearing them through water, or through a wall in another room. Then even that faded, and then there was quiet. A quiet unlike anything I have ever experienced. Not empty, not scary at first, just still, complete, and I realized I was standing. Not lying on concrete with something crushing my chest. Standing. Upright. Whole. I looked down at my hands and they weren't torn or bleeding. I looked around and I wasn't in the tunnel anymore. I want to be careful here, because I know this is the part people either believe or they don't, and I can't make that decision for you. I can only tell you what I saw. I was standing in a place that looked like the earth, and didn't. There was ground beneath me, and there was sky above me, but everything about it was more alive than I have words for. Light didn't just fall on things, it moved through them, like the light itself was breathing. There was no wind that I could feel, but everything around me had motion in it, small and constant, like a field of wheat that's always shifting even on a still day. And the peace, I keep coming back to that word because I don't have a better one. The peace wasn't a feeling I was having. It was a feeling the whole place was made of. I was afraid. I want to say that clearly, because I don't want to make this sound like I floated into some kind of easy comfort. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what had happened to me. Every instinct I had, the practical, skeptical, keep your feet on the ground instinct that had run my whole career, was telling me something was very wrong. And then I saw someone walking toward me. I want to tell you the truth about this part, because I think it matters more than anything else I'm going to say. I didn't need to be told who he was. I've heard people describe meeting Jesus in a vision and say things like, somehow I just knew. I always thought that sounded like something people said afterward to make the story sound better. I don't think that anymore. There are things you know before you understand how you know them. This was one of them. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't dramatic. He was just walking toward me the way you'd walk towards someone you already loved, someone you'd been waiting to see. And when he got close enough that I could see his face, I felt something I have never felt from another human being in 50 years of life. I felt completely known. Not looked at, known. Every place I had cut corners, every prayer I had said out of habit instead of belief, every year I had spent trusting spreadsheets more than I trusted him. All of it right there, and none of it hidden. I expected to feel ashamed. I expected, if I'm honest, I expected something closer to judgment. I had spent enough Sundays half listening to sermons about a day of reckoning that some part of me assumed if I ever stood in front of Jesus, it would feel like standing in front of a judge. It didn't feel like that at all. It felt like standing in front of someone who had been waiting a long time for me to finally look up. He didn't say anything grand. He didn't announce himself. He looked at me, and I mean really looked the way nobody has ever looked at me, and he asked me a question. Not why did you sin? Not are you ready to be judged? He asked me something much simpler and much harder to answer. He asked me what I had been doing with the life I'd been given. I didn't have a good answer. I stood there, in whatever place that was, in whatever form I was in, and I tried to explain myself the way I would explain a missed deadline to a client. I talked about my work. I talked about providing for my family. I talked about being a good man, a fair man, a man who kept his word, and he just waited. He let me talk myself all the way down to the truth, which was that I had spent 50 years managing my life instead of surrendering it, that I trusted my own understanding of how the world worked more than I trusted him. That faith for me had become something I kept in reserve, like an emergency fund I never actually touched. I stood there in front of him and I felt 50 years of quiet, comfortable distance just collapse. That was the beginning of everything that happened next, not the vision, this, being seen and not turned away. After a while, I don't know how long, time didn't move the way it does here. He told me why I was there. He told me plainly that I wasn't being shown anything because I was special. I want to repeat that, because I think people are going to want to make more of me than I am, and I need to stop that before it starts. I am not a prophet. I am not chosen above anyone else. He was very clear about that. He told me I was being shown something because I needed to understand it well enough to go back and tell people. Not dates, not predictions, not a map of the future they could pin to a wall and check off. Something more important than that. He told me the world was entering a period where people were going to be forced to make choices under pressure. And he said the real question was never going to be which side wins which conflict. The real question was going to be where people put their trust once the things they had built their lives on started to shake. I remember his words almost exactly because they've played in my mind every day since. What people expect to happen is not always what will happen. But when the things they trust begin to move, what is inside them will be revealed. I didn't understand it yet. I would. He lifted his hand, and I don't know how else to describe what happened next, except to say the ground fell away beneath us, gently, and we were somewhere above the earth, looking down at it the way you'd look at a living map. I saw regions of the world I recognized from my work, shipping corridors, border crossings, cities I'd flown into a dozen times for assessments, just like the one that had nearly killed me. Except now I wasn't seeing them through reports and spreadsheets. I was seeing them the way I think he sees them. I saw military convoys moving through mountain passes. I saw ships changing course in open water. I saw crowded rooms of men in suits arguing behind closed doors. And I saw at the very same moment families in small apartments with the television on, watching those same men, and trying to guess what would happen to their sons. I saw refugees walking. I saw soldiers writing letters they didn't know if they'd get to send. I saw markets rising and falling like a chest breathing too fast. And then I noticed something strange, something that has stayed with me longer than almost anything else in that vision. Nothing moved the way it looked like it was going to move. A conflict that every analyst on Earth, and I mean that, I've sat in those rooms. I know how those men talk. A conflict that every expert would have sworn was heading toward disasters, suddenly bent toward an uneasy pause nobody saw coming. A nation that the whole world had already written off as beaten, found leverage out of nowhere and used it. An alliance that looked unshakable from the outside began cracking quietly from the inside, the way a bridge fails, not all at once, but one hairline fracture at a time until the whole thing gives. And somewhere else, in a place nobody had been watching, in a country that hadn't made a headline in years, something new and dangerous began to rise, small and quiet, while the whole world's attention stayed fixed on the loud thing happening somewhere else. I said something to him. I think I said, "Nobody's going to see that one coming." And he said something back that I have thought about every single day since. Humanity watches the visible battle. It rarely sees the one happening inside the human heart. That sentence sat inside me the way a stone sits at the bottom of a lake, quiet, heavy, not going anywhere. Then the vision shifted, and I watched something that I think honestly might be the part of this story that matters most. I watched a world absolutely convinced it understood what was coming next. I saw newsrooms. I saw analysts on television speaking with total confidence about what a certain government would do, what a certain military would do, what a certain economy would do. I saw ordinary people like me, people like you, nodding along, repeating those same predictions at dinner tables and in group chats and at church potlucks, because it's a comfort to feel like you understand what's happening in a world that scares you. And then, one by one, small things happened that nobody had accounted for. A decision made quietly by a single military commander that changed the shape of everything downstream of it. A private diplomatic meeting nobody had been told about until after it was over. A disruption in a supply chain. And here I felt something almost like professional recognition. Because I've spent my whole career watching how one broken link can bring down a system everyone assumed was solid. A disruption that reshaped an entire region's leverage in a matter of days. A sudden change in leadership. A ceasefire that surprised even the people who signed it. A population that, instead of rising up the way every model predicted, simply didn't. They stayed home. They prayed. They chose something the experts hadn't put in their spreadsheets. Over and over, I watched confident predictions collapse. And he said to me gently, "They will keep saying, we know what happens next. And they will keep discovering that they do not." I felt that one in my chest because it described me. My entire career had been built on believing that if you gathered enough data, you could see around the corner before anyone else. Standing there, watching prediction after prediction fall apart in front of me, I understood, really understood, not just intellectually, how much of my confidence had been an illusion the whole time. The vision came down out of the sky then, down into the middle of it all, and he showed me people, not armies, not governments, people. I watched a mother sitting on the edge of a bed with two small children asleep beside her, the television glowing low in the next room, her hand pressed flat against her chest like she could hold her own heart still by force. I watched her flinch every time the news anchor's voice changed tone. I watched a young soldier, maybe 22, sitting against the wall of a barrack somewhere, turning a photograph over and over in his hands, wondering I could feel it, not just see it, wondering if he would ever see the person in that photograph again. I watched an old man alone in a small apartment, sitting in a chair by a window, praying out loud to an empty room because there was no one left to pray with him. His voice was thin, but he kept going. I watched a young couple standing in a kitchen with unpaid bills spread across the counter, watching everything they'd worked years to build come apart because of decisions made by people they would never meet in places they would never go. I watched a pastor pacing behind a pulpit after everyone had gone home, his sermon notes crumpled in one hand, trying to figure out how to keep his congregation from tearing itself apart over politics, when what they needed was to be held together in something bigger than politics. I watched a wealthy businessman standing in an office with glass walls, looking out over a city, discovering maybe for the first time in his life that none of it, none of the money, none of the leverage could actually protect him from what was coming. 6 different people, 6 different responses to the same fear. Some panicked, some turned hard and bitter, looking for someone to blame. Some grabbed for more, tried to hoard their way to safety. Some just went numb and pretended none of it was real. Some prayed. Some, even in the middle of their own fear, reached out and helped somebody else. He didn't tell me which response was right and which was wrong. He didn't have to. I could feel it. The fear was the same size for every one of them. What they did with it was the difference. Then he showed me something I don't think I was ever supposed to see with human eye, and I still don't fully have language for it. Behind everything I had just watched, behind the wars, behind the fear, behind the panic and the greed and the hatred, there was another battle happening. I saw it more than I understood it. Dark shapes, moving like smoke, pressing in wherever fear was strongest, whispering into the cracks fear had already made. Not creating the hatred, I don't think, just leaning into it, feeding it, making a small resentment into a large one, making a private fear into a public rage. But I saw something else too, and this is the part I hold on to most. Wherever someone prayed, really prayed, not out of habit but out of desperate honesty, I saw light there too. Not loud, not commanding, just present, standing near. I understood, somehow, that these presences weren't there to force anything, weren't there to make decisions for people or to guarantee outcomes. They were there to strengthen, to protect, to remind. I actually asked out loud, if prayer stopped the wars, if it made the bad things not happen. He was honest with me in a way I wasn't expecting. He said sometimes prayer changes what happens, and sometimes it doesn't change the outer thing at all. The war still comes, the loss still comes, the diagnosis still comes, but it changes the person standing inside it. It gives them a courage that wasn't there before. It opens a door nobody else can see. It turns panic into steadiness, even when nothing about the danger itself has changed. Prayer is not a guarantee that the storm will not come, he said. It is what keeps you standing inside it. I don't think I'd ever really believed that before. I believed prayer was supposed to fix things. Standing there, I understood it was something bigger and, honestly, something harder to hold on to than that. Then he said the thing that I think this whole vision was actually about. Everything before it, I believe now, was just the road that led to this one point. He told me the most important warning he could give me wasn't prepare for this particular war, or watch for this particular leader, or here is the date, here is the outcome, write it down. He told me plainly that people would spend enormous energy chasing exactly that kind of certainty. Predictions, dates, maps, theories about who the villain is and who the hero is, and that chase would cost them the one thing that actually mattered. He showed me what that cost looked like. I saw people so consumed with identifying the enemy out there that they stopped loving the neighbor right in front of them. I saw believers arguing bitterly with other believers over whose interpretation of the future was correct, while the people sitting next to them in the pew were falling apart. And nobody noticed because everyone was too busy being right. I saw people spread fear in his name, using his own words like a weapon instead of a comfort. I saw others quietly getting rich off other people's panic, selling certainty to people desperate enough to pay for it. And I want you to hold on to this part because it's the part that gives me hope even now. I saw a smaller group, ordinary, unremarkable, not famous, not powerful, not especially learned. They prayed. They fed people who had nothing. They refused to hate, even when hating would have been easier and would have felt, in the moment, more justified. They stayed calm when everyone around them was falling apart. Not because they knew more than anyone else about what was coming, but because they'd already decided, long before the shaking started, who they belonged to. Their faith didn't get smaller as the world got less certain. It got stronger. It was like watching something get proven instead of tested. I understood standing there that this quiet, unremarkable steadiness was the actual point. Not the war, not who wins, this. Then came the part that I still, all these months later, have a hard time getting through without my voice breaking. He showed me my own family, my wife, my children, years from now, older than they are today, standing in the middle of a hard season. I could see it was hard. I could see the weight of it on their faces, but I couldn't see what it was. I couldn't see the shape of it, just that it was coming and that it was going to hurt. Something in me broke wide open right there. I begged him. I actually begged. I have never begged for anything in my life the way I begged in that moment. I asked him to just tell me what it was so I could go back and stop it, prevent it, protect them from it. I told him I would do anything. I told him I would give up everything I had left if he would just let me know enough to keep them safe. He didn't tell me. He looked at me with so much love that it almost hurt more than the fear did. And he said that knowing every detail of what was coming would not make me more faithful. It would only make me more afraid sooner. He told me that if I spent whatever years I had left trying to map out every danger headed for the people I loved, I would miss actually being present with them in the years I did have. I understood finally what the entire vision had been for. It was never meant to give me a calendar. It was meant to change how I lived starting the very next morning, whether or not I ever woke up to see it. He said to me, "Do not teach them to fear tomorrow. Teach them to trust me today." I have not stopped hearing that sentence since. Before I went back, he showed me the world one more time, and this time it was different. I didn't see armies first. I saw a woman in a war-torn city sharing half a loaf of bread with a stranger because it was the only thing she had left to give. I saw a family who had lost everything opening the door of a half-built shelter to people who had lost even more. I saw a church with its doors propped open in the middle of the night because someone inside knew people would be walking past who had nowhere else to go. I saw a doctor treating a patient from a country his own government called an enemy and not asking a single question about it first. I saw two men who had every reason on earth to hate each other, choosing, in one small, unremarkable moment, to forgive instead. Millions of small, quiet decisions like that, all over the earth, all happening at once, most of them never making it onto any news report, never getting a single headline. And I understood, really understood, that this was the larger thing he was building, not a political outcome, not a winner, something underneath all of it, something the cameras would never really capture, growing in the exact places where the world looked like it was falling apart. When the world shakes, he told me, people will discover what they built their lives upon. I felt the ground, or whatever it was I was standing on, begin to change, and I knew without being told that I was about to go back. I heard the voices first, before I felt anything else. Far away, and then closer, and then unbearably close. Someone was shouting. I heard the word again, said sharply, like an order. I felt pressure, enormous pressure, on my chest, more pressure than I thought a human body could survive, let alone want to survive. My whole body felt impossibly heavy, like I was being poured back into something too small for me. And then my heart started beating again, and I came up out of it gasping, violent clawing for air, like a man surfacing from underwater after staying down far too long. They told me later the room went completely silent for a second before it erupted into motion, because nobody standing over me actually expected it to work. 18 minutes is a long time. 18 minutes is usually goodbye. I couldn't speak for almost 2 days. My chest was wrecked, my ribs were broken from the compressions that saved my life, and my mind kept sliding back to that place, that light, that peace, that voice. Every time I closed my eyes, the doctors were kind but practical. They talked to me about oxygen deprivation and the brain's response to trauma. They weren't wrong to be careful. I don't blame them for it. I was the most careful, most skeptical man I knew, right up until the moment I wasn't. When I got home, I did what I do. I researched. I read every clinical study on near-death experience I could find. I looked for the explanation that would let me set this down and go back to being who I was before. Some part of me wanted that explanation, if I'm honest, because the version of me before that tunnel had an easier life than the version of me that came out of it. I never found an explanation that fit what I experienced, not fully, not honestly. I'm not going to stand here and tell you I have scientific proof of anything, because I don't, and I distrust anyone who claims they do. What I can tell you is that something in me that had been closed for 50 years came open, and it has not closed back up since. I pray now, not the way I used to, reciting words out of habit before dinner, but the way that old man in the vision prayed, out loud sometimes, honestly, even when it's uncomfortable. I read scripture, and it doesn't feel like homework anymore. It feels like it's reading me back. And the strangest change of all, given who I used to be, given how I made my living, I've stopped needing to know what happens next. So here's what I want to leave you with. And maybe that's the part of this testimony we should take most seriously. You don't have to know exactly what tomorrow will bring. You don't need to know the next war, the next crisis, or the next event that will shake the world. But you do need to know where you stand with God, because none of us is promised tomorrow. The question is not, do you know when everything will happen? The question is, if everything changed today, would you be ready? Don't wait until fear forces you to pray. Don't wait until everything you trust begins to collapse before you turn back to God. Don't wait until tomorrow to make peace with Him. Prepare now. Seek God while you still have time. Repent while your heart can still respond. Forgive while you still have the opportunity. Love while you still have people around you. Pray while you still have breath in your lungs. Because the greatest preparation for tomorrow is not knowing what tomorrow holds. It is being ready for whatever comes, because your life is anchored in God. If you've been running from God, come back. If you've been putting off surrender, surrender today. If your faith has grown cold, ask Him to revive it. And if you don't know Jesus, don't assume you will always have another opportunity. Tomorrow is not promised, so don't wait until it's too late to prepare. Get right with God today. Thank you for watching this video to this very point. If you found something in this experience, please share it in the comment so others can learn from you. Also, don't just skip this video because you are done watching. Kindly like, share, and subscribe so more people will get to see this video. Remember, your relationship with God matters. Stay ready and prepared. God bless you.